All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the time and place for a workshop before the Nevada Gaming Control Board for possible action regarding proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Regulation 6 and Nevada Administrative Code Chapter 368A regarding without limitation Nevada's live entertainment tax. Madam Secretary, has this workshop been posted in accordance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law?
Yes, it has.
All right, let's first proceed with public comment, Madam Secretary.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If board members ask questions of the speaker, time needed to address those questions will not count against the speaker's 3-minute time. If speakers have any handouts or written copies of verbal comments to provide for the record, please hand them to the enforcement agent seated to your left in Las Vegas or behind you in Carson City.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Matters brought to the board's attention during this public workshop will not be acted upon by the board. We can only take comment today from the public as well as from members of the board, and we will not act upon those, but of course, we welcome any comments that anyone has. If you want to make comments regarding the specific regulations that we're going to speak about today, you'll have more time to do that. You will not be subjected to the 3-minute time rule. Let's start with, is there anyone in Carson City wishing to make public comment? Mr. Linksavath, Chief Linksavath, would you like to make public comment? That's a no. Very good. Anyone here in Las Vegas wishing to make public comment other than in time during the actual item on the agenda? Seeing none, then we will close the public comment section. Madam Secretary, has the regulations received any comments that have been posted?
We have not received any.
Okay, then. For the record, we need to note pursuant to Nevada Administrative Code, there is a sign-in sheet. So anyone here or in Carson City in attendance, we would encourage you to sign in. That's regarding whether you want to speak or not speak. It's just good for the record for the LCB to have a list of anyone who is in attendance at our workshop today. Mr. McGaw, Senior Deputy Edward McGaw, is there anything we need to add in terms of housekeeping before you begin?
Mr. Chair, no, I believe you've covered everything.
Okay, very good. Then please go ahead and describe to us what our potential regulation revisions we have on before us today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Hendrick, Dr. Watkins, Judge Assad, and Secretary Rupert. For the record, I am Ed McGaw with the Nevada Attorney General's Office, and I'm here today to present the proposed amendments to NGC Regulation 6.090 and 6.100, as well as the changes to Chapter 368A of the Nevada Administrative Code. All of these amendments relate to the administration of the live entertainment tax. I will be presenting a description of the changes and the process for adoption. With me here today are the chiefs of the board's audit division and tax and license divisions. They are here to provide an explanation as to the reasons for the changes. Prior to getting into specifics of the amendments, I felt it would be helpful to provide an overview of the process for adoption for the commission. If approved today, the NGC regulation changes will be referred to the Nevada Gaming Commission for adoption. If those changes are approved by the commission, they will become effective upon approval. Because the proposed amendments to NEC Chapter 368A fall under the Nevada Administrative Code, they will take a much different route. If the NAC amendments are approved today, that draft will then be sent to the commission for its adoption as its own draft. The commission will then send that draft to the Legislative Council Bureau for review. At this stage, the LCB will assign a draft number to the regulations. Once reviewed and approved by the LCB, the draft will be sent back to the commission. LCB reviews tend to take quite a bit of time. This could be months. I've seen where it's kept in there for a year. So hopefully, depending on their workload. So that version may take a while to get adopted. The commission will then, once it receives the draft back from LCB, it will schedule a public hearing on the proposed amendments, at which time the public will be allowed to comment and make suggested changes. The commission then will consider those changes and decide whether or not to move forward with the draft or to make those substantive changes. If it makes substantive changes, those changes will then have to be referred back to the LCB, and the process would renew itself. If the commission, at the same time, the commission agendizes a public hearing, it will put on its agenda an adoption hearing. At that hearing, if assuming the draft remains the same as the LCB approved draft, the commission then would consider whether or not to adopt it. Once they vote to adopt the draft, those amendments or the draft then gets sent back up to LCB, and then it is scheduled for the legislative commission. The legislative commission will then consider those amendments and just will vote on whether to adopt those amendments. If once the LCB or legislative commission approves those amendments, then they will become effective. So until they adopt them, they will not become effective. This process again could take months to a year, depending on LCB's workload. Despite these different paths, there's nothing to prevent the board and commission from going forward on the adoption of the changes to the NGC regulations prior to the NAC changes becoming effective. At this time, I will briefly walk through the proposed changes, starting with the NGC amendments. Well, overall, these changes are designed to remove the requirements that licensees include procedures in their internal control system that address compliance with the live entertainment tax. Instead, they will be replaced with the board chair establishing guidelines, checklists, and other criteria that licensees must follow. These requirements would be specified in NGC Regulation 6.090 and 6.100, or at least the establishment that the chair would establish those guidelines, checklists, and other criteria. That requirement would be put in the regulations, the NGC regulations. From what I understand, this would make the board commensurate with what the Department of Taxation already does in their enforcement of the live entertainment tax. The proposed changes to NAC Chapter 368, I'm sorry, my throat's getting dry. NAC Chapter 368A would repeal NAC 368A.510, which is the section that has the requirement the internal control system address LET items. And then it would add a new section, which would then specifically state that the chair has the authority to implement and enforce the guidelines, checklist, and other criteria, that licensees that provide live entertainment must comply with those requirements, and that the chair has the power to waive those requirements in certain circumstances. With that, I conclude my affirmative presentation. I will now turn the podium over to Chief Fremont to provide the why these changes are needed and why they're appropriate.
Thank you, Senior Deputy McGaw. Good afternoon, Chief Fremont.
Thank you, Chair Hendrick, Dr. Watkins, and Judge Assad. For the record, I'm Thomasina Fremont, Chief of the Audit Division. We appreciate this opportunity to provide some background regarding the proposed changes to the administration of the live entertainment tax. The live entertainment tax began as the cabaret tax decades ago, administered by the Gaming Control Board. The board developed strong minimum internal control standards to ensure that the audit division could perform proper audits in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. As entertainment expanded beyond the cabarets, the tax became known as the casino entertainment tax, but was still limited to casino entertainment. Eventually, in 2004, the legislature decided to expand this tax to capture entertainment outside of the casino industry. The tax became known as the live entertainment tax, and the administration of this tax was bifurcated between the Nevada Gaming Control Board and the Department of Taxation. At that time, there were many elements that went into the calculation of taxable revenue in the casinos, such as food and beverage, merchandise, as well as admissions. Due to the complicated nature of the calculation of the tax, the board maintained their strong mix, which provided proper controls of the calculation of this revenue. In 2015, the legislature simplified the live entertainment tax. Food, beverage, and merchandise were no longer subject to the tax unless they were part of a required purchase to gain admissions to the venue. So this just left us with admissions. This streamlined calculation is more in line with the venues that are administered by the Department of Taxation. Therefore, to provide parity with how the Department of Taxation administers this tax, the Audit Division recommends repealing the live entertainment mix, replacing them with new LET guidelines. These guidelines will provide minimum requirements for the recordation of live entertainment revenue. Once the new guidelines are effective, internal audit and the CPAs will no longer be required to perform any work regarding live entertainment revenue, and the audit division will no longer perform full compliance audits of this revenue, but instead will be performing a simple revenue audit. Lastly, we also recommend an amendment to the NAC, which will remove the requirement for licensees to submit internal control systems related to live entertainment. We expect that this will provide much relief to the industry when it comes to the entertainment tax, while providing the same level of oversight as provided by the Department of Taxation. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief Fremont. Is Chief Linksvath going to present as well?
No, I'm just here to answer questions.
Okay, good. Then I guess my first question to both of you is, if you had to explain this to a fifth grader, what are we accomplishing here today?
I could take that. Essentially, we're trying to reduce procedures for the industry, whether it be group 1, 2, or restricted if they have LET. That's what we want to do. If it was magic and we can just have everything happen today, all we would do is just change the NAC. But because that has to go through the LCB, we have to change our regs right now to in the meantime so that we can do what we want to do, which is to reduce the procedures.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that's what I was trying to get at, Chief, is I've read through this and I'm aware of the genesis of how this came about. And this may not make front page news, but I would lay odds that those employees in the tax departments of gaming licensees will be very happy to see this get approved. Right now, we're treating gaming licensees in a situation where they have to do more than they would have to do if they were not a gaming licensee. And we have some that have venues inside and outside of the gaming property. And it just seems to me, for tax purposes, if we can get the exact right tax and we can collect the right amount of tax, we should do it in as few moves as possible. So I commend all of you for making that happen and making the licensees' lives happier. And at the same time, we still collect the accurate and total amount of tax due to the taxpayer. So thank you all. Questions from board members?
I don't have any particular questions. I'm definitely in support of this, given the complexity of the live entertainment taxes and the things I've heard, or the horror stories I've heard in the past. I think this will make things a lot easier. And as a board member responsible for audit and tax and license, I thank you both for all of the work that you have put into this and your diligence.
Thank you.
Judge.
Thank you, Chairman Hendricks. I would first like to, well, let me start with, it may not make front page news, but it should make second or third page news. Maybe you could shoot out a little press release to the RJ and some other media outlets, because I think it's important to the industry and to the general public to see that we do things here. We don't just, sit around all day and do nothing.
We'll have to get our public information officer on that.
There you go. Yeah. I wish we had one.
That's my other hat.
That's another story for another day. But I want to thank you all for what you do each and every day. And your unsung heroes. What you do goes pretty much unnoticed, behind the scenes stuff, but it's critical. It's crucial to the revenue that we generate, the tax revenue for the state, for education, for the roads, and every other thing that we supply here. And I wish you would be able to get some recognition for that. And I'm serious. Maybe you could just send some kind of a press release to the RJ and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Certainly you could send it out to the industry. I think they would appreciate it, and see what kind of feedback we get from them. And I think it's a critically important part of what we do here every day, along with everything else that we do with the calendar that we covered today: applications, licensing, disputes, so forth and so on. But going through these regulations, I commend Chairman Hendricks and Governor Lombardo for the initiative that they put forth, that we need to go through some of these regs that are antiquated, simply not useful anymore for whatever reason. The one that comes to mind mostly is the slot machines, regulations dealing with the coins that go into the slot machines and how those are calculated. Well, everybody knows we don't use coins anymore, but that was still on the books. There are other regulations very similar to that. And it's important that the industry gets the word, if not the public as well, that we are doing things to try to help improve the industry and the flow of accurate calculation of tax revenue as well. So again, thank you both for putting this together.
Thank you, Judge. I would echo the thanks to both the Audit Division as well as the Tax and License Division on making these changes possible for the industry. This is exactly the same kind of streamlining that the judge mentioned that the governor wants in terms of regulatory work that streamline the process to benefit the state of Nevada, the gaming industry, and the Gaming Control Board employees. And I think this accomplishes all of that. I've said on many occasions that we should strive to accomplish our tasks in as few moves as possible. And I think this does that. As I mentioned earlier, we're not compromising our ability to collect tax. We're looking at another agency who's doing it in less moves. And we're saying we're going to get to the accurate, right amount of collection with less moves and less burden on both this agency and the licensees. So I appreciate that. And I think this is an excellent example of rethinking an existing process to make it better for everyone. So thank you to both your divisions and all of your agents. And also thank you to Senior Policy Counsel Sebastian Ross and Senior Deputy McGaw for your work on these revisions. Please.
Well, I would like to say that the way that we have done it in the past made sense, the way the laws used to be. But as the legislature has changed things over the years, they have actually done the streamlining. And then we looked at what we're doing and said, now we can change and be like the Department of Taxation. So what we did in the past did make sense, but as things evolved, now this makes sense.
Very good point. And any chance we ever have to thank the legislature for streamlining things, I'm happy to do that. So thank you to all of the gang up in Carson City. I would open it up now for anyone from the public who wants to make comments regarding these revisions. Is there anyone here in Las Vegas or Carson City who want to make statements before we move on with these matters?
There's
Chief
no one up here,
Linksavath,
Chair.
is there? Okay, thank you. I was about to ask. Nobody's in Carson City. Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to make comment? Seeing none, which I expected, I would think that there will be people, as the judge mentioned, cheering for this, but I would be amazed if anybody stands up in the next few months or calls the LCB and says, no, we don't want that to happen. So I love these proposed revisions, and I would be happy to move forward. If there's anything else from audit, tax, and licensing. Good. Mr. McGaw, anything else you'd like to add? Okay, then we would have, I assume, Mr. McGaw, that we need to do two separate motions. Is that correct?
That is correct. That'll keep it clean.
Okay, Member Watkins, are you prepared to make the motions?
Yes, as to the NGC regulation changes, I move to recommend the commission adopt the proposed amendments to NGC Regulation 6.090 and 6.100 as set forth in the draft dated November 29th, 2023.
All right, Madam Secretary.
Member Assad?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chairman Hendrick?
Aye, that motion passes.
And as to the NAC regulation changes, I move to recommend the commission accept the draft of the proposed amendments to NAC Chapter 368A dated November 29th, 2023.
Madam Secretary.
Member Assad?
Aye.
Member Watkins?
Aye.
Chairman Hendrick?
Aye, that motion passes as well. So both of those recommendations will be submitted to the commission. Senior Deputy McGaw, will those be on the commission's agenda this month, or do we have to wait the 30 days and put them on next month's commission agenda?
For the NAC ones, I think we would just keep them together. They would have to be on in 30 days, so it'd be the following month.
Okay,
not this
very good. So we'll look forward to having those in front of the commission at their March agenda.
Yes.
Very good. All right, that will conclude our workshop. Again, anyone here, please do sign into the sheet on behalf of your attendance here today, so that way LCB has a full record as well as up in Carson City. And Madam Secretary, I believe that brings us to our second public comment section.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If board members ask questions of the speaker, time needed to address those questions will not count against the speaker's 3-minute time period. If speakers have any handouts or written copies of verbal comments to provide for the record, please hand them to the enforcement agent seated to your left in Las Vegas or behind you in Carson City.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to make public comment? Again, thank you all for your attendance today, and thank you all for your hard work on this. We look forward to being in front of the commission, ultimately the Legislative Commission and the LCB as soon as possible. I assume the Attorney General's office and Mr. Ross will stay on the LCB so that they move these forward as expeditiously as possible.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you all. That will conclude our workshop today. Thank you all for your attendance or for watching online. We are adjourned.